The following Hobart training video on the Hobart Model 5614 meat saw is a supplement to the instructions manual that came with your Hobart 5614 meat saw. If you have any questions concerning operation, please consult your manual. Your Hobart 5614 meat saw is constructed and designed to give long, satisfactory service, providing it is properly used and maintained. This training video will cover the operation, cleaning, sanitizing, and maintenance of the 5614 meat saw. Safety devices incorporated in this saw must be in their correct operating positions anytime the saw is in use. Before turning the saw on, raise or lower the upper guide and guard assembly by grasping the hand knob and sliding it up or down so the cutting zone is only as high as necessary for the piece being cut. All doors, covers, and guards must be in their operating position closed while the saw is running. The pusher plate is used to hold meat against the gauge plate when slicing short ends. A slot in the pusher plate and a stop on the right flanged end of the carriage is provided for proper positioning of the pusher plate. Hold the pusher plate handle with your right hand and always maintain a safe distance from the blade. When not in use, keep the pusher plate under the carriage support. Using the pusher plate as described will make it unnecessary to hold your hand near the cutting edge of the saw blade. The switch knob is located here. Pulling the knob turns the saw on, and pushing the knob turns the saw off. Place the product on the carriage. Set the upper guide and guard assembly and the gauge plate before starting the unit. Set the gauge plate by turning the adjusting knob. A reference scale on the table indicates thickness of cut. If the gauge plate isn't needed, you may lift the adjusting knob, disengaging the rack teeth, and slide it to the rear, or raise the gauge plate to a vertical position and slide it out of the way. The adjusting pin permits you to slide the gauge plate out of the way and then back to the original position at a later time. To set the pin, adjust the gauge plate to the desired position. Loosen the gauging pin hand knob and slide the pin against the gauge plate support stop. Tighten the gauging pin hand knob. If you're using the traveling carriage, stand in front of the machine. Lean lightly against the front of the carriage as you move the carriage to the left, passing the product through the blade at a steady and uniform rate. Use your left hand to remove and stack cuts, always reaching behind the blade. Never reach in front of the blade. Return the carriage to the right, pulling the product toward you and away from the blade. If you're using the stationary carriage, the carriage may be locked in a stationary position by pulling the spring-loaded carriage lock out, rotating it 90 degrees, and sliding the carriage until the lock engages. To unlock the carriage, pull the carriage lock out and rotate it 90 degrees so it rests on its bracket. When sawing with the stationary table, observe the same safety procedure of reaching to the left or back of the blade when removing or stacking product. Never reach in front of the blade. Warning: disconnect the electrical power and place a tag at the disconnect switch indicating the circuit is being worked on before cleaning this machine. The 5614 meat saw must be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized before the first use, after each day's operation, anytime it is not used for an extended period of time, and before being put into operation after an extended downtime. The meat saw can be cleaned with high-pressure cleaning equipment, or it can be disassembled and its components cleaned in a sink. In either case, a neutral pH cleaning agent mixed per the supplier's instructions should be used. After washing, thoroughly sanitize, rinse, and dry the saw and all components. Disassemble the following saw components to allow access to all areas for cleaning. Disassemble the carriage by turning either of the carriage stops 90 degrees so the bumper is toward the rear. Roll the carriage off either end while lifting it free of the carriage guide. To remove the blade cover, release the spring clip, rotate the blade cover to the open position, and lift straight up off the hinge. To remove the table, raise the gauge plate to its vertical position, release the table clamp on the left side, shift the table to the right, freeing the right support rod from the stationary clamp, and lift the table to remove. To remove the head and base doors, open them and lift them straight up and off their pins. Remove the upper pulley wiper by pulling it off its pin. Remove the front wiper and guide assembly. The rear wiper assembly is removed by pulling the wiper assembly from the pins. To remove the blade, raise the gauge plate to its vertical position. Turn the tension adjustment hand wheel to the left to lower the upper pulley and release the tension on the blade. Remove the blade. The upper guide and guard assembly is removed by simply removing the hand knob. Finally, remove the upper and lower pulleys by unlatching the pulley latch and pulling the pulley straight out. The upper and lower pulleys are interchangeable. If using high-pressure cleaning equipment, scrape the machine and its components to remove any scrap particles before cleaning. Thoroughly hose the saw and its components following the equipment supplier's instructions. Be sure to get the hose stream into all corners. Stubborn soil may require a little brushing. If using sink cleaning, use a cloth or brush on the base unit. Thoroughly wash, sanitize, rinse, and dry. Before reassembly, a light coating of tasteless mineral oil should be applied to all metal surfaces. Lubricate 6 ball bearings on the carriage with a small amount of mineral oil. Apply a few drops of mineral oil to the gauge plate rack and work the gauge plate assembly back and forth a few times. Reassemble the saw components in reverse order of disassembly. First the upper and lower pulleys, then the upper guide and guard assembly. Reinstall the saw blade so that the blade teeth point to the right and down. Adjust the blade tension to its proper setting by turning the tension adjustment hand wheel to the right until 3 starts to show in the tension indicator. Rotate the upper pulley a few turns by hand until the blade centers itself on the pulleys. Then turn the tension adjustment hand wheel slowly to the right until the indicator registers between 4 and 5 at eye level. This is the best operating tension for the blade. Check the blade backup blocks. Clearance between backup blocks and the blade should be approximately 1/32 of an inch. Now, reinstall the rear wiper assembly, the front wiper and guide assembly, the upper pulley wiper, and the base and head doors. The table is reinstalled by placing it on the base and moving it to the right. Then move the table back to the left so the support rod is hooked on the stationary clamp. 4 table rests support and align the table underneath. When the table is in proper position, latch the table clamp above the left support rod. Now reinstall the blade cover. And finally the carriage by holding the carriage so the center bearings underneath are aligned with the carriage guide. Roll the carriage into place. Return the carriage stops so the carriage is stopped at both ends. Warning, disconnect the electrical power and place a tag at the disconnect switch indicating the circuit is being worked on before beginning any maintenance procedure. The motor has permanently lubricated ball bearings and requires no additional lubrication. If changing saw blades, disassemble the components as described in the cleaning section of this tape. After installing a saw blade, make sure all other components are properly reassembled. This concludes operator training for the Hobart Model 5614 meat saw. To obtain service and parts information concerning this meat saw, contact your local Hobart service office.